Hello folks, I hope you're all happy and healthy. It's been a short while since I've done any videos because my computer broke down and I had to replace a few parts. But I'm back and with a new video showing you how to achieve this very satisfying simple looping render. Okay, so let's begin this process. It's not going to look exactly like the preview video, partially because I'm remaking it from scratch. First things first, get yourself into your favourite editing layout and make sure you're in material preview mode. Press Shift A, get yourself a torus, that's the main item we're going to be doing. Bump up this number for major segments to 60. That's what I had it on, and bump this up to 20. It just kind of ups the resolution a little bit. Right click, shade auto smooth, and we want to scale this by 5, so press S then 5. That scales the torus by 5. What the effect mainly consists of is the torus itself, and we're going to place a camera inside the torus, and that's going to follow the inside of the item, and then we're going to shade it. So yeah, Shift A, bring in a curve, scale that by 5, and maybe also bring it just a little bit more so the camera has room inside our torus. You can put the torus back to textured mode for the viewport display. And then finally we want to bring in a camera. So again, you can do Shift A, bring in your camera, it will spawn here. Well, the interesting thing is what we then need to do with the camera. Next thing we want to do is make sure our camera follows our circle. So the way we make our camera follow our circle is we go to the Constraints tab here with the camera selected, add an object constraint, click follow path, and you then want to select from the target your circle. I have two because I did this earlier in a previous collection. And then you'll find that the camera is inside your object and sticking to it. And this offset number enables the camera to loop round. Now what you can do, or what I did in my preview video, is I did also animate the Y component of the camera. What I'm actually going to do is delete those two rotation values because I don't want that anymore. And what you do want to do is animate still the offset along the Bezier circle. So again, this is not going to be exactly like the preview video, but it's going to be close enough. If you want this to loop, make sure you start your keyframes on 0 and end them on the maximum number of your frames in your scene. So I have chosen 500 here, a nice large amount of frames. So click on this animate property box here to shove in a keyframe on 0, go to the end and put this to 100, which is exactly the end of the path of our circle. And what you will see, if we press play, our camera is going to very nicely follow our path and hopefully not go out of bounds at any point. Fingers crossed. I also selected a very small focal length. You can bring this even lower to have a kind of stretched out effect, or you can bring that in to make it nice and focused. I'm going to leave this on a nice 30. So what do we do next? Well, we want to perhaps bring in some lights into our scene. What I did in my preview render is bring in a point light, and again I constrained that to the Bezier circle, and then I also duplicated that and add that on an offset of 50. And I didn't animate those, but you can do if you would like to. For both of those, I had a power of about 500, between 500 and 1000 watts. So I'm going to do that for both of them. And that will light our scene very nicely. Again, put some colour on the lights if you want to. I'm just simply demonstrating the process that I went through. Make it how you want, change it up, and produce some art. So, what do we do from here? We're going to save, Control S, always be saving. And then we're going to go into the shading workspace for our torus. Make sure your torus is selected. Go to Material Preview, go to your shading tab. So there we've got the camera view here, and we've got the main workspace on the left, and then we've got a shading workspace below. So click New, and that creates a new material. And what I did for this one was quite simple. The main driver for most of the materials I use is some kind of noise texture, some kind of interesting textures that are built into Blender, so Voronoi texture, however you say it, and that's quite useful for creating a mix between two different shaders. So what I ended up doing was a mix between a normal BSDF and an emission, and then I plugged the distance here. So I've lowered my lights to 100. Again, you could probably get rid of them entirely. Yeah, you could. If you're going to use emission textures, you can get rid of the lights entirely. Again, have a play around. And I basically messed around with the settings for the Voronoi texture. So I set it in my 1:2 distance to edge, and I bumped the scale up, and that produces this very trippy effect as the camera goes round the torus. But again, the idea is that you experiment, you find what you would like to do for your particular piece of art in Blender, and you go with it. And that's the whole point. This has turned out very different to how I did it the first time, but that's the way I would like to do it. You might want to turn the roughness up or down. You can have a mess around with transmission, which is how glass-like the shade is going to be. Might want to turn that off. So yeah, have a mess around with the colour, see what you would like in your particular render, and then when you're ready we can take a look at the render settings. So I've done this in Eevee. This will work in cycles as well. What you'll find with cycles is you might need to change some of the values, turn off your caustics to get a bit of a quicker render. Make sure your samples aren't up too high. I've only set mine to 100. Again, have a change around, see what works for you. I'm going to stick it on Eevee for the sake of this render. And at this point, you also want to make sure that your output settings are correct. Select your frame rate. Make sure your start and end frames are correct here. And that your output is going to be going to the right place. I'm going to stick a 3 on the end of this one. If you want it to go straight to a video, make sure FFmpeg video is selected here. And under encoding, have a change around. MP4 is MPEG-4 there. Perceptually lossless is quite a good setting to check for there. And your color management should follow the scene. Filmic and high contrast is a good idea on that one. So if you go down to color management here, Filmic, high contrast, or very high contrast gives you a nice, interesting look to your render. Again, what I'm going to do is show you a single image from the render. Again, not terribly interesting, but if I hit the render animation, I will show you what it looks like at the end of this. So thanks very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please do give a like and a subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a lot. And I look forward to seeing your renders on Twitter. Please do give me a follow at ToolHarris and link me any of your exciting renders from your Blender sessions.